Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made this custom backlit barbershop sign. So stay tuned and check it out. So to start, I'm using a 1/4 inch downcut bit to cut out all the letters, and here I just have a 3/4 inch piece of MDF that I'm securing to the work surface using some brad nails. I like to start my cuts from the center of the piece, so here I'm just finding center on that workpiece, and then I can export my files and get those loaded into the CNC machine. Once those are loaded in, I can line the bit up on that center point, and I'm just using the paper method to get the bit set to the correct height. Then I could zero everything out on the CNC machine and hit play. Now, if you don't have a CNC machine, you can still cut these same letters out. All you'd have to do is print the letters out on some paper, attach them to a piece of wood, and use like a jigsaw or bandsaw to cut these letters out, and you're gonna get really good results. I just so happen to have a CNC machine, so that's what I'm gonna use. Now, if you don't have a CNC machine and you don't want to cut these out by hand, but you're interested in just purchasing some letters like this, let me know in the comment section down below. I might start up like a little Etsy page and list some of these wooden letters for sale. So again, let me know if you're interested in something like that, and I'll get to it. So with the letters all cut out, I could just remove them from the work surface and then just take a utility knife and scrape off all the fuzzies on the edges. This just gets the edges really nice and crisp. Then I could take my orbital sander and just go over all the surfaces, getting everything nice and smooth. From there, I moved on to sealing these letters up with some of the sanding sealer, and this step is really what transforms these letters. This sanding sealer does an excellent job of sealing all those edges, and I think I did 2 coats here, sanding in between each coat, and then I could start applying the paint and primer. For the primer and the paint, I did 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of paint, and again I sanded with 320 grit sandpaper in between each coat. And while the paint dried on the letters, I could get moving on the rest of the sign. So to start, I just picked up some 1x material and just put a little round over on the edges just to give it a nice little detail. And after the roundovers on the edges and sanding all these pieces, I applied some stain with a foam brush. Once the stain dried, I applied a clear coat finish to them, and then I took them over to the miter saw and cut them all down to the same length. Then I took them over to the workbench, lined them all up, applied some glue on the edges, and make a plank. Off camera, I took some more pieces of some 1x material, stained it jet black, put a clear coat on it, and then I could use this as the frame material. And here I'm just outlining the glued up plank with some of these black pieces, and I'm just using 45-degree miters on all the corners, just going around one at a time and making all the marks and lining up all the cuts. And once I had all the trim pieces cut to length, I could elevate the brown plank about 3/4 of an inch off the work surface, and then I just used some glue and brad nails to attach the trim pieces to the plank. Next, I took a piece of scrap MDF that I painted black over to the bandsaw. And here I'm just cutting off little pieces that I'm going to use to offset the letters off that back brown plank. And just use some super glue to attach them to the back of the letters. So when I first started connecting all these LED lights to the back of the letters, I was cutting them to length so that they'd fit on the back of the letters just perfectly, and then I used all these little connection wires and bits to connect all the lights back together. And I got about 3 letters in before I realized that the connections just were kind of cheap and they didn't always work, so it was just at random when they wanted to work. And I just couldn't have that. I couldn't send that off to a client and have them hang it up on their wall and it not work. So instead of having all these little potential failure points in the connection pieces, I ripped the lights off of the letters that I already had done, and I just ran the lights as one continuous strip throughout the back of all the letters. And that way I limited the potential failure points to just one point, and that's where the LEDs would connect back to the power source. This was kind of disappointing, but in the end I think it worked out really well, and I don't think you'd ever notice the difference. So basically I lined up all the letters where I wanted them on the sign, and then I took some blue tape and just put that as the bottom mark of where all the letters would sit, and then I could just put a little pencil mark where the letters would start and where that same letter would stop. That way when I went to glue it in place, I had those marks to kind of line the letter up on. And I could just drill some holes behind the letters to kind of hide the holes and run the lights through those holes. It wasn't a difficult process, but it definitely took a little bit longer than I was expecting it to. And I'm super thrilled with how this sign turned out, as this was kind of a step out of my comfort zone. I've never done a sign like this or backlit anything like this, so this was definitely an awesome learning experience, and I'm super grateful for the opportunity to make a sign like this. So huge thank you and shout out to my guy Hansel over at Barbershop. He's definitely the best barber in the area, and if you're in the Green Bay area and you need a haircut, go check him out. And if you guys enjoyed this video, or if you learned something, it'd be awesome if you could hit that like button down below. That just lets YouTube know that this was a decent video, and maybe it should pass it on to some other people to watch. And while you're down there, if you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button as well. That way you're notified every time I release a new video. And until next time, thanks for watching.